it's helped them to transform their experience and affairs in a number of different ways. Let me tell you about the first such occurrence that I remember being able to witness. Thankfully, I was able to witness this. I started doing a radio show back years ago, and the radio show was called Let's Relate in Love. And originally, it started out to be a show for singles, and I kept getting all these people when I would give events that would come out, and I'd look at them and I'd think to myself like, oh my gosh, the reason why you're single is not, is you. It's you. And so I kept saying that people needed to work on self. It wasn't that they needed to go out and find somebody else. They needed to find themselves. And if they found themselves, then they would be much more able to find a partner, to find someone to love. And so it wasn't about finding the right person, it was about being or becoming the right person, somebody that people would just naturally be attracted to and naturally want to be with. So I started out doing Let's Relate in Love. I did that for years and years. But then when I started having all the events and people, I started seeing them, then I started changing around the focus of the show from being about loving another to loving oneself. And so I kept doing the show, and it was just a wonderful transformation that I saw. At first, when I was doing the show, we had an event, and it was like a panel discussion. Speakers came out, and there was a woman that walked up to me, and she said to me, "Are you Sandra Bishop?" And I turned and I looked at her thinking that she was going to beat me up. No smile on her face, nothing positive, nothing, nothing warm about her. I mean, she was just as dry and mean looking. And are you Sandra Bishop? And I turned and, in my normal self, and I said, yes, I'm Sandra. And she says, oh, hi, I listened to you. And I thought, oh, okay, like, wow, thanks for listening. but before I could even get that off, she was gone. And and so, fast forward a couple of years later, I kept doing the show. And I would, from time to time, get letters from listeners. People sometimes would call in, but that wasn't the main thrust of my show. I was one of those people, one of those talk show hosts where I didn't make up a topic and throw it out there and have the expectation that people would call in to take up my hour worth of time or 2 hours or however long I was on. I didn't expect for other people to fill that time. I expected for me to fill that time. And so I would go in, and just like I come here to Pal Talk, ACMI Gather Radio, I would come in with the expectation that I would be talking for the entire time. And sometimes people would interrupt me by calling in to give me their 2 cents or to try to ask me what I thought about the Ebola virus or something else that was going on at the time. And so I was just focused on what I was doing. And so I get on and I talk. And then sometimes I get a letter, sometimes I get a call, sometimes somebody else would say, wow, we listened to the show. But, I always just pretended like I was only talking to about 3 people all the time. And so I did the show. Anyway, then, after people started calling and asking, how do you know this stuff? Where do you get this information? What do you study? And blah, blah, blah. They'd ask me all these questions. And so finally I decided I'm going to start teaching a class, because the funny thing about it is that even though I was studying the Course in Miracles, I was studying Science of Mind, I was studying Joseph Campbell, I was studying any number of things, I didn't have one place or a book list that I could tell you to go to. I would say, you know what, why don't you just go meditate for a while? Because most of the information, even if I read stuff, it doesn't make sense to me until I get plugged in, until I do my meditation. So, I would encourage people to do that. I give them some different topics that they can kind of research and look up and, whatever. But for me, I was like, okay, maybe I just need to have a class so that I can bring all this stuff together. And so that was what I did. I started a Course in Miracles class at a little church. And at the time, wasn't really concerned about, who was going to come, whether they were coming or not. A lot of times people open up their facilities to me for free, or just for a percentage of whatever it is that I collect, if I collect something. And so, no, just on the radio, hey, I'm having a class, I'm teaching a class. And so I put the night of the week out there and I let it be. So now, mind you, it's been 2 years since I saw the woman with the no smiling face. And I sit down and I've got this circle of people, and we're in a circle and we're starting class, and we hear the door close. And when I hear the door close, it's like, okay, the door is closed. And so that means that somebody's going to be walking into the room any second. And it was so amazing because even before she hit the room, I saw the light coming from her. And as she approached, I realized it was the same woman who had come up to me with the no smiling face and said, "Are you Sandra Bishop? I listened to you." That woman walked into the room, and you could feel and see the difference in her being. It was so awesome, and I was just so awed by the transformation that has taken place. I've had other people tell me over the course of time the transformation that has taken place because of not just, we want people, get the Course in Miracles. We want people to read it, but not everybody is a reader. And just because they read it, they don't always interpret it, or they don't always come away with the same thing that you and I might come away with. And so what happens is that in knowing self and in figuring out who we are and how we see things, we breathe into it who we are, this extra energy, this essence of love that is present within us. And then when that connects with somebody, even if it is over the airways or over the internet or in a class, when that connects with somebody and that resonance takes place, there is a transformation a lot of times that takes place within the person because of a choice that they've made. If I tell them that there's only two choices, there's only love and a call for love, and then they go out and they look at the world differently. They're not looking at the world like the world is out to get them. They're not looking at it with fear and contempt and thinking that there's something inherently wrong or that people are judging them. They transform how they see things, and in that transformation, something different takes place in them. It takes different place in me, and it takes a different way in you. And so as I saw her walk in, I knew that something wonderful had happened. And she definitely had a testimony, just like a lot of people that come to the classes or that tune into a radio thing, or at some point just kind of like decide to take a listen, or allow themselves a little willingness to just allow themselves to see it differently. And the transformation was absolutely wonderful. Now, for her, she believed that I had something directly to do with it. Okay, fine, because she had the willingness to come, the willingness to listen, the willingness to tune in on a regular basis, the willingness to try it. A lot of times what I tell people is I don't do this. I don't do this because I'm trying to convince you to think like I think. I could care less. I don't want you to think like I think. This is not this mind transformation. I'm not trying to transform and mold your mind. I'm not trying to get you to be fearful of God. I'm not trying to tell you thou must do such and such. No. All I'm doing is offering a different way of seeing things and saying, hey, if it fits, just try it. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't, throw it out. And so she had a little willingness, and that little willingness paid off in dividends in how she saw the world and in how she saw herself. And I was so happy to be a part of that transformation. But in particular, so for me, that is a clear example of someone who chose to learn through pleasure. I mean, it was as though she went out to meet herself where she was. It was like she decided that she wanted to be different, and she extended herself. She reached towards what was possible for her, and it paid off. There was another woman who I talked about, who was another person that I had met. And when I originally met her, she was the director of an agency, a nonprofit agency here in Cleveland, and very sharp woman. I mean, she just sharp. Everything was sharp about her. Just, well educated. I think she had her master's. That's great. I mean, today it seems kind of common. But at the time, she had her master's, and she was running a nonprofit. She was just on the ball all the time, and you know it. I mean, she was great. She was great. There was a sternness about her, and she was always running from point A to point B to, all the time. And she was a multitasker, one of those folks. And as she drove to one of her meetings, she was in, and I don't know how long after I met her, maybe a couple of years after I met her. And, and she had done some great things with me too. I got a contract to work for the nonprofit that she was actually in charge of. Got a little contract, and I was working for them, and so she was great with me. Just an admirable woman. And but one day, as she was driving to one of her appointments, talking on the phone and doing all the stuff that she normally does, she was in a terrible accident. Now, mind you, when I say terrible accidents, we've been in car accidents, and a lot of times you get up and you walk away from it. She was in one of those accidents where you had to get life lighted out, and uh, you talk about those big jaws cutting you out of the car, life flighted to the nearest hospital. Where she stayed in the hospital for months on end, and then even after that, there was the recuperation at home, and she had to wear one of those TENS units on her back. That was the first time I'd ever heard of that, a TENS unit, where it would send these electronic pulses on your back. And so for a long time, she was down. I mean, she was out for the count. But the amazing thing was, is, of course, you send cards, you send flowers, and tell people about how you're praying for their recovery, and it was all, just being supportive as a friend. But I remember when I saw her, probably about a year and a half after the accident. When I saw her, she looked like a totally different person. The woman who had this stern edge to her, this about business woman, walks in the room, and she's got on some earth shoes, and um, her hair is different. It's unkept, frumpy, kind of carefree hair, and sweats on, and everything about her is different. I mean, you could look at the lines in her face and see that she was a different person because her face was relaxed. I mean, her conversation was relaxed, her body was relaxed, everything about her was relaxed. And so as I talked to her about what she had gone through, she says, laying on your back and being in pain like that gives you an entirely different perspective on life. It makes you see things different. It challenges everything that you thought was important and shows you what truly is important. She said, so yeah, once I was, on my back, she put together, this part of her didn't die. She put together a business plan for a totally different business. And now she has a few daycare centers that are around here. And so while she still works with children, she works with them in a totally different capacity. She goes to work to now laugh and have fun. And she says she's no longer that same person that she used to be. And so she was clearly a person who I saw that needed to have an abrupt halt or some kind of painful intervention in her life to to reevaluate how she saw things and then to change it up. And a lot of times for many of us, we are so busy, so single focused, so singularly sighted that we're going towards a goal, never once stopping to question whether or not this is our soul's purpose or simply our what do you call it, the soul's purpose versus our economical purposes, or this total allegiance to consumerism. We want, and so we go hi ho, hi ho, hi ho, and off to work we go without ever really stopping to say, am I fulfilled spiritually in what I'm doing, as opposed to simply financially? Most people don't like to look at their lives and all the different facets that comes about in pleasing ourselves. And so we get caught up. So, for me, as I think about this, I think about this in the sense that what's true about us is this spiritual essence, that underlying essence that's always calling us forth in order to be on higher ground. It's an evolutionary process that we go through. There is a spiritual maturation, I think, that all of us are going through if we allow ourselves a little willingness to just simply step back and say, is this right for me? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? In the Course, it tells us that our number one thing is to know thyself. Know thyself. And so if we're so busy, like I said before, if we're so busy with all this other stuff, when do we ever step back and ask self, what would you have me do? Self, what would you like to do? And so many of us, even in this thing, because I listen to people all the time talking about, well, God will do this and God will do that. God operates in and through you. And so if you're never listening to yourself, how do you know what God is saying to you? You don't even know. You're making a supposition. You are supposing that this is what God desires for your life. I'll tell you, I always say, follow your bliss. Just like Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. What gives you joy? It's not about what pays the bills. I know you think it is. But at some point, if we start to simplify our lives, I mean, really, what do you need? What do you need? And so if you start to simplify your life and boil it down to the essence of just simply, what do you need? And then from that place, then just say, what makes me happy now? And then when you're operating from that, happiness is so much more important, y'all. It's amazing to me. I have read studies where they say that just because you make more money doesn't mean that you're more happy. Money doesn't make you happy. And some of the richest people in the world can be some of the most unfulfilled people in the world. So more money is not going to make you happy. More self-satisfaction, however, will. So stop in this evolutionary process and ask yourself, what will make me happy? So we go from, if you ever notice, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, and y'all know I can talk, I'm just talking, whatever. If you look at those evolutionary charts, don't ask me why this popped into my mind, but if you look at those evolutionary charts, you'll see that man went from where we thought we were walking on, and how primates walk using their hands or using their knuckles and their feet. We go from walking like that, with big craniums and big, huge brains, to now walking upright with smaller brains, more condensed, more concise brains. And so there is an evolutionary process that everybody is going through. And so based on what it is that is supposed to happen with your life, based on all the things that you are going through and growing through, is shows you the trajectory of what is possible for you. But what's interesting is that most people, instead of trying to go forward, and I did this today, y'all. I don't know if you follow me on Facebook, but today I even went back and I pulled out all these things that I call the throwback pictures from long time ago, back in the 70s when I was a teenager. I think I was a teenager in the 70s. But back in the and so many of us are really trying to go back, trying to tie ourselves to what's past rather than looking towards or into this moment now. People are looking back and so backwardly focused that they miss the present, trying to focus on the future or just trying to get towards the future. Eventually they get to be in this thing called the future and they've totally missed over the present. And so it becomes this thing of um, I always love that quote where Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. God is not a God of the dead, but of the living. And so a lot of times what we're trying to do is we're trying to get something old to satisfy us in this now moment, in the new moment, and not really recognizing that moments and ideas and people and all these things are constantly evolving and constantly changing. I love the Bible. I love the Bible. Don't get me wrong. But there is a new transformation that is taking place on this planet. So where you have a group of stories that are built around a culture of people who were in the agricultural age, now we're in the information age, and there is something different that we need to be about right here and right now. It's amazing to me because a lot of times one of the things I look at is I look at different teachings and different ideas that people had. Some people just don't write down their ideas. Some people don't share their ideas. I mean, I'm here now over this wonderful medium called the internet. I've got a camera in front of me, a microphone on my head. I have the ability to broadcast, to record, to do all of these things. The things that influence people as we progress are the things that we record, are the things that we share, are the things that we send forth. If you're sitting on an idea, if you're sitting there in the room and not sharing and not talking, not stepping up to the plate and saying, I am a teacher of God, if you're not doing any of those things, then that information, those insights, that idea, the love that you have dies when that thing called a body dies. But when you share ideas, they expand and grow. They go beyond you and where you are. And so it becomes this thing that all of us right now in this day and age have the capacity to project love outwards from us. I no longer have to have this illusion that this right here is all there is. I can reach out and touch somebody in Australia right now. I can reach out and touch someone in England. I can reach out and touch somebody that is, down in South Africa or any place. And so it becomes this thing of not just what I can see is real, but what I can conceive of in my mind is real. And not only real, but totally reachable, totally doable. So, yeah, so we can do all that. So a little willingness. Let me get back to where I was. Because I love this stuff. So, um, so little willingness in the chapter in the Course of Miracles, there's this section or this part in there. Don't even get me to lying about what page it's on because I don't know. But here's what it says. I copied it down out of the book. I didn't write it down. So here it is. It says affirmation. This is how I wrote it down. Affirmation. I, who am host to God, am worthy of him. It's almost like I want to hear that music play. Dun, 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 dun. I, who am host to God, am worthy of him. Now, I love this. I love you. I love this. Here's what so when I read this originally, I thought to myself, absolutely. But so many people are still seeing God out there, up there in the sky, out there in the ethers. And when they say everywhere present, they think it's everywhere present except for where they are, because they are where they are. And so in your mind, in a lot of people's minds, no two things can occupy the same space at the same time. So this idea of being host to God is totally foreign in a lot of people's concepts or in a lot of people's minds, because there is no way to see them as one. Got it? That's the atonement. There's no way for so many people to see themselves at one with God, as host to God. But now a little shift in our perception would not only say that we're host to God, but that we're worthy hosts to God. So let me go on, because this is just so rich. It's so rich in what it says. This is still part of this quote that I'm getting out of A Little Willingness in the Course in Miracles books. It says, he who established his dwelling place in me created it as he would have it be. I mean, he who established his dwelling place in me created it as he would have it be. So guess what that means? That means all those crazy cockamamie judgments that you have made upon yourself. Who are you to judge what God has created as his dwelling place, as he would have it be? What, do you think you know better? Really? I mean, really? Do you think you know how it should be better? I mean, come on. And so when I started thinking about that, he who established his dwelling place in me created it as he would have it be. So with all the okay, so this is really not me, but I'm gonna put some stuff out there just for this, for example. So with the foul mouth, I don't have a foul mouth, but I'm sure that some of you do. With a foul mouth, I got a dirty mind. Yeah, okay, with a dirty mind, with sexual being, with the thoughts that you have, with the desires that you have. Yes, with those hips. Yes, with those lips. Yes, with that funky hairdo you've got. He established his dwelling place in you as he would have it to be. As he would have it to be. I mean, can you wrap your mind around that? As he would have it to be. And so all your judgments about all the stuff, no matter what it is, all your judgments, who are you? Who do you think you are, right? If he wanted you to be that way, I mean, your little thoughts, let go of all that crazy cockamamie judgment ideas that you have. Let go of them all. I mean, because they are neither here nor there. They are nothing. it was so funny because today I actually I know I'm switching up again. I actually saw my post, and I do these things. I do my posts sometimes ahead of time on Hootsuite. I schedule them in so that I don't know exactly what's coming up on what day. But today when I looked on here on the course on my Facebook page, it says stop your whining. It makes you an insufferable bore. Wait, I said an ugly, insufferable bore. Whining ain't cute. Get on with it. Just get on with it already. I mean, get over it. And so the whole thing is that we whine, we want to complain, we want to say that something is inherently wrong in who we are and how we were created. But it says, He who established his dwelling place in you created it as he would have it to be, and all your judgments against it mean nothing. So get over them, let them go. So, and let me carry on with this quote. Hey, I see all you guys are there. Hey, hey, hey. So it is not needful. This is what I'm continuing with this. It is not needful that I make it ready for him, but only that I do not interfere with his plans to restore me to my own awareness of my readiness, which is eternal. Now, you guys, I tell this story all the time because I remember so clearly when I was younger how I so loved ministry. I so loved God. I so loved all of this stuff. I loved it, loved it, loved it. But there was a part of me that felt like I wasn't ready. There was a part of me that needed to get out and like folks would say, use those terms, sow my wild oats and do all this stuff that I was doing. I wanted to just be this, the party girl that I was being. I wanted to do all the stuff that I was doing. I just couldn't. I couldn't just like let go of all of that stuff to do the spiritual walk. I thought it was something that it was necessary I needed to do. I kept thinking to myself that I needed to make myself ready. But then when I read this, it's like, it's not needful that I make it ready for him, but only that I do not interfere with his plan to restore to me my own awareness of my readiness, which is eternal. I mean, could you imagine that? I didn't need to do anything. It was almost as if this is a required course kind of thing. It's a required course kind of thing. So can I explain that any better than that? This is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. So it becomes this thing of not me sitting there thinking that it's about me getting ready for it. I've already been walking the course. I've never not been walking the course. You can't not be on the journey towards God. There is no other course. There is no other journey. All of this stuff, all of the experiences that you have, all the insights you have, everything is all about you getting this understanding, this awareness that you've always been prepared. You've always been readiness. Your readiness is not established by you, it's established by God. Whoa! I thought that was so neat. And so, all right, so here, let me finish up this part of a little willingness chapter, the affirmation out of here. I need add nothing to his plan. I need add nothing to his plan. I need add nothing to his plan. Can you say that with me? I need add nothing to his plan. I mean, how many times can we? So I'll tell you, for years, I'll say for 10 years, I used to, okay, so I had a church, um, and I had all these particular values that I thought was just so important. I would see these mega churches here in Cleveland and around the country that, I come out of the neighborhood and school of thought where we talked about the churches, and we would say that churches were there to kind of like the opiate of the masses. Who was that? Sartre said that, or was it Nietzsche? Nietzsche. that it said was the opiate of the masses, religion was. And so you'd have all these mega churches that would open up and they would just suck out of the community and not give anything back. And so because I had a value in having a church, I wanted to have my little church and do my thing. And then I wanted to make sure that I was giving back. So I started to volunteer at a hunger center. And I volunteered at a hunger center for it seemed like 10 years. And I did my labor, I did my time. It was almost as if every other day I was going there, kind of like I do with my dad. You know how I'm always with my dad. So I was going and I was giving, I was doing, I was working really hard because it was a value that I had. And I kept thinking that, that somehow all the stuff that I was doing, all that I was giving, all the volunteer work, all the labor, the selflessness, I was thinking that God was going to bless me for it. Oh, that I was going to be so blessed for it. I wanted to be a good person. Not realizing that I was already a good person. Not realizing that I was under a state of grace, the unmerited favor of God. I wanted to add to his plan. I wanted to add to his plan. And so I would go in and I would do everything. I would do everything, always thinking that I'm going to be so blessed for it. I was already blessed. I'm still blessed. I'm not volunteering up there anymore. I'm doing something different now. Um, but when it says I need add nothing to his plan, guess what? You need add nothing to his plan. You can be as trifling as you want to be. Your readiness is not determined by you, it's determined by God. So yeah, it is. Yeah, you don't have to be nice and be true to yourself. I mean, that's the whole thing. To thine own self be true. And so the last part of that whole thing is it says, but to receive it, I must be willing not to substitute my own plan in place of it. That means that what? Then I can't put up my thoughts, my ideas, my thinking, because I got control issues now. I got some control issues, right? So I'm not trying to substitute my plan, because the moment I think that I'm working a miracle, the moment that I think I'm doing something, the moment that I think it's dependent on me is the moment when I try to usurp the power of God. I'm trying to step in and be and do what God is being and doing. And so all I need to do is step back and be true to myself, bring me to the table. And so by doing that, I recognize the blessings. I recognize all of this stuff, and I don't have to do any of this stuff. I need add nothing to his plan. He got it done. I don't need me. Don't need me to be an air traffic controller to try to tell anybody how to do, how to be, how to live. It's already set in motion. Just a little willingness, a little willingness. So, uh, it's so interesting because and I know I'm getting short on time, and it's all good. I'm getting short on time, but let me tell you this: when I was working on my talk for this past Sunday, I watched this movie that I loved when I saw it. But you know how you kind of see movies and it doesn't really like go ding 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 when you see it. It's kind of like later you kind of reflect on some of the things that were shared in the movie, and then it sort of has resonance later on down the line. Well, there's this movie that I watched, and I watched it over again the other day just because I was trying to see why it was that I was kind of drawn to it as I prepared for a little willingness. It's because, like I said to you guys before, I have control issues. I know I have control issues, and even when I go out and when I go, I love to dance too. And so when I go dancing, I have this thing where, when I'm on my own, I'm dancing and I'm just having a good time, like, ooh, I'm, party right here kind of thing. I'm partying. But now when I need to do a slow dance or a waltz or a ballroom dancing, I'm gonna tell you, I have a hard time because I have a hard time letting somebody else take control. It's just not in my nature. And so I'm busy trying to turn the guy and he's busy trying to turn me and I'm trying to turn him and he's trying to turn me. And having two leads in a dance doesn't work. So I'm watching this movie called Take the Lead, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, when I think about a little willingness, why does Antonio Bandera and Take the Lead come to mind? Why does the tango come to mind? And so at some point it got to this part in the movie where he says to the PTA, the teachers and all these folks that he was talking to, it was like, he was like, dance teaches us teamwork. Dance teaches us trust and respect. It teaches us dignity and about the power of choice. He says that as a man, he says, I make a proposal. I offer my hand for you to take it and to dance. He says, as a woman, you have the right to either accept or reject. And so he says there's no one with more power. He was like, there is a offering and there is a request that's made and there is an acceptance that's made. And then we can do the dance together. The quote, one of the quotes that I loved about Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire is that Ginger Rogers did the same thing that Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in heels. So it becomes this thing of one is not less, one is not more. It simply is what it is. And so there is this subtle, like this joining of interest in order to make something very beautiful happen. And all that it takes is a little willingness. And if we just, a little willingness, we will learn so much. We will gain so much because the two of us walk together and walk with Christ. Yes. So in text 31, Dove says, let me read this off the board. To thine own self be true. Trust in our one true self. Hey, Jay Bird. Text 31, he speaks about something you want. Sometimes you want to lead. Sometimes you want to follow. We are in truth walking together. Hey, Mr. Pete. Walking with Christ. That's in the chapter 31. Only in 1 minute. Only in for a minute. Oh, okay. So sorry, I'm not supposed to read all of that. So he's talking to somebody else. But yeah, it is all about this, this giving up our resistance and just realizing that we can all come together and make something beautiful happen. That's what this is all about. You guys, removing the blocks to our awareness of love's presence. And then once we remove those blocks, the flow becomes natural. It's natural to be a little willing and to not see, in my in my, what is that? For some reason I saw the quote and it was right there on the tip of my tongue, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. In my defenselessness lies my strength. In my defenselessness lies my strength. And so it becomes this thing of, if we just stop fighting, if we just relinquish, if we are just willing, yeah, we're going to learn the choice through pleasure or pain. But the moment you keep trying to control and trying to put your place in your plan in place of his, that means that you're down that path of painful learning. When you go out to meet it cheerfully, joyfully, with a spirit of acceptance and willingness, that's where the pleasure comes in. And you will be guided because it's all here for you. You are a host of God. There is no place else, nothing else. He established his dwelling place in you and as you are, for you to be who you are. And so there's no struggle in that. It's only a simple awareness, a simple knowing that yes, you're in your divine right place. Yes, you're loved. Yes, you've never been any place other than where God is. So yes, it's so wonderful to be there. So in my defenselessness, my safety lies. Yeah, all of that. It's my strength. Yes, all of that. So, um, great, you guys. I am so happy to have been able to be here with you and to share with you today. And I will plan on being here on Monday from 7 o'clock until 8. And we'll see about what happens on Wednesday, next Wednesday, but I am just so overjoyed and pleased to be with you. So with that, I am going to tell you my website. Dove already put it up on the board, sandrasetti.com. I'm still working on that. And at San Bishop is the where you can follow me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook at Sandra Thrives. Hey, remember, I love you. God loves you most of all. And if you stay tuned, you'll hear some wonderful other folks right here on AC My Gather. So thank you guys. Love you. And I'll see you next time. All right. Blessings.